So, Lone Rider here, watching the news this evening. Apparently, Queens, New York is soon to have a prosecutor who doesn't believe in prosecuting crimes. This person won the Democratic primary, so they're soon to be a shoo-in for the general election. And their general response, like so many of these, their general philosophy, like so many of these New Democrats, is decriminalize everything. Now, if they were decriminalizing crimes that didn't hurt anybody, that would be fine. Decriminalize. I mean, New York goes after citizens for having magazine capacity that's higher than what they say they should have, even if it's just clearly somebody who's got a target rifle or whatever. Decriminalize that. Owning an item doesn't hurt anybody. I'm against drugs, but I could certainly see even decriminalizing possession of a small amount of, let's say, marijuana or something. But what they're talking about decriminalizing is things like stealing, and that's not cool. There was somebody who was elected up in Boston who actually, apparently shoplifting is not prosecuted anymore. In New York, they're talking about, person in Queens is talking about, decriminalizing the turnstile jumping and a bunch of other things. Look, if you're a prosecutor, you're elected to prosecute offenses, right? And the law has obviously the same law that makes it against the law to do that has a penalty built in. So the penalty will depend on the severity of the infraction. Murder is a lot more serious than, shoplifting a granola bar. So you're going to get a commensurately different sentence in accordance with that law. But that's not to say that stealing the granola bar still isn't wrong and still shouldn't be discouraged and still shouldn't be, prosecuted. Obviously, if you have a finite amount of resources, you have to allocate them, with stuff that's more important, etc. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about somebody who's just announced as a moral principle. They've decided that they don't want to prosecute crimes, generally speaking. And one of the things this individual said is they intend to close the Rikers Island jail without building or opening a new one to take its place. So presumably all those people will either be shuffled off into other jails that are overcrowded or released into the civilian population. And I have a big problem. What about the people that are there because they did something really, really wrong? I mean, you don't go to Rikers for stealing a granola bar or jumping a turnstile, right? What about the people who are there because they killed somebody or they shot somebody or they, whatever? I mean, are you just going to let them go? Like, seriously? The only rationale I could think of for this is that somebody like this actually wants to destroy their jurisdiction, like totally set things in motion that will cause havoc, cause damage, cause harm to innocent people, etc. I don't think you should be electing a person who essentially, like the Joker in the Batman movies, wants to watch the world burn. I don't think you should be electing a person like that to be your district attorney of all people, right? And that's the thing. You see, the district attorney's job is to prosecute crimes, right? Not make the rules. And really their only job is to prosecute crimes. It's kind of like a mechanic, right? Mechanic's job is to fix things. A doctor's job is to fix people, right? Could you imagine if you had a surgeon who said, I'm not going to do surgery anymore? He'd be out of a job. You need to hire a new surgeon. He can't be a surgeon anymore if he's not going to do surgery, right? Could you imagine if you had a car mechanic who said, I'm not going to fix cars anymore? Or a bicycle mechanic who says, I'm not going to work on bikes anymore? Or a writer who says, I'm not going to write anymore? These people, in these fields, that's what they do. That's their job. If they're not going to do it, then they're not in that field anymore. And you need to hire, if you are going to a car mechanic to work on your car and your car mechanic suddenly decides he's not going to work on cars anymore, then you need to find a different car mechanic because you're not going to get your car fixed by going to him. If you elect a district attorney who says that they don't want to enforce the law, they don't want to prosecute offenses, when that's the job of the district attorney, again, it's like a mechanic who says he doesn't want to fix things anymore, or a surgeon who says he's not going to do surgery. Then you're in the wrong line of work, lady, right? And also, what's going to happen to the rest of us, right? I have friends, not just my friend who owns a bike shop, but I know other people who own, their own businesses or are self-employed, whatever. If you have a small shop, even a big company will take a hit if enough people are, let's say, shoplifting, right? It will eventually cause a problem for everybody. But it can be sort of survived by a larger company with multiple stores because the damage is, more spread out over a larger, it's not going to hit home as much as if it's, a little mom and pop shop. But even there, it will eventually have, they have what they call loss prevention, for a reason to limit these things because it does do damage. But what happens if the law says we're not going to prosecute this anymore? Right? We're not going to prosecute shoplifting. Well, then people will just start shoplifting. Not everybody. There's good people out there who don't believe in stealing, but the people who are inclined to do it, who are disinclined to do it because they're afraid they'll get in trouble or whatever. Maybe they have previous offenses and they don't want to get picked up for those. If they get stopped for shoplifting. If they just know that the police aren't going to do it, nobody's even going to call the police because everybody's going to know that the police aren't going to enforce it because it's not going to be prosecuted. Then what happens is you're encouraging people to commit crimes, right? You're encouraging people to steal. And aside from all the reasons that's bad, here's what happens if you're the guy who owns the store or your friend is, right? The situation of people just randomly stealing willy-nilly from the store is untenable. He's not gonna stand for that. Now, if the police aren't going to do it, what's he going to do? I don't know. I get the feeling a lot of people are going to go back to keeping baseball bats under the counter if this happens. And that's something we shouldn't have to do, right? We already have a social and legal mechanism in place to deter these things and to punish them when they occur. It's called the legal system, right? We have the police, we have the prosecutor, we have the judge and the jury if necessary, and the penal system. And that exists for a reason, right? The alternative to that is anarchy, vigilantism, or every single person having to do everything themselves to protect themselves. And while being able to protect yourself if necessary is certainly something that people should keep in mind as, something that should be, consider, well, can I protect myself if I have to? Like if somebody tries to break into my home and rob me or something. That's all fine and good. But that's in a particular instance if you need to. That's not the social mechanism for enforcing the law. The social mechanism for enforcing the law in this country is the legal system, starting with the police, ending with the jails, the penal system if need be. And you cannot just undermine that. And then what happens? Well, people keep a baseball bat under the counter. And what happens if they have to use it? Somebody gets hurt. Maybe they get in trouble for trying to protect their livelihood. This is just so wrong on so many levels. I think anybody, look, there's problems with the Republicans, there's problems with the Democrats, but I see things like this that are going to affect regular people, real people, the actual, things you do on a daily basis in your lives, in this case, your livelihood, if you are a small business owner, and they go through with this, let's decriminalize stealing. Well, then what happens to you, right? Are you free reign? It's free reign for people to just come and rob you blind. And again, what happens? You know the police aren't going to do anything. The prosecutor's not going to do anything because they've announced it. They've decriminalized it essentially. What are you going to do, right? Now you could wait until that happens and again rely on a baseball bat under the counter or something else. Probably not going to be a firearm because in New York the laws are very strict, so you're kind of on your own. You basically have to go mano a mano with a criminal. For elderly people, older people, anybody with a physical disability, that's not going to end so well. And even for fairly fit people, most normal, healthy, mentally adjusted people aren't prepared to use lethal or man-stopping levels of violence, which means that a normal person will probably hesitate. A criminal, not so much. So even a healthy, fit person, going toe-to-toe with a criminal is probably going to be in some trouble just because the criminal has less compunction probably about doing harm. So, yeah, not a good situation to be in. And of course, the alternative to doing anything is just sit there and let them rob your store. Let all your merchandise walk out the door. And then you close, you lose your livelihood, your employees lose their livelihood. And if the store happens to be, a bike shop, an archery shop, a music shop, a fencing shop, etc., a gun store, although that's probably unlikely in New York, but, in other words, a type of store that not only is your livelihood, but is also sort of a clearinghouse for information, a clubhouse for people who participate in a certain activity, an advocate for that activity. I don't know if you're a cyclist, but if you've ever gone to most bike shops, a lot of them have a group of local riders that hang out there, that ride there. Some of them even have teams. Some of them sponsor teams. It's definitely a place where you can go to get information about, what roads are safest to ride on, what trails are open, etc. And generally speaking, if there is a local advocacy effort for bike access or anything, usually the local shops are involved. So, when that bike shop or any other store like that goes out of business, it's not just a question of the guy loses his livelihood who owns a store, or gal, and the employees lose their jobs, and that the customers no longer have a place to get their stuff. It's that there's a hole in that community of the people who participate in that activity. Now, most stores where people are shoplifting probably aren't going to be bike shops. A lot of bike stuff is big and bulky and hard to hide under your coat. It's probably going to be, like 7-Elevens or, mom and pop corner stores. But even there, okay, so it's not going to totally kill the local riding club, but it's still going to cause a problem, right? That may be the only convenient place that's open late at night for people who live in that neighborhood. And if they go out of business because everybody's shoplifting all their stuff, what are you going to do, right? And this is just, like I said, the only reason I could think of for doing this is if you really wanted to undermine society and really cause a problem. And I don't know why we have elected officials. They elected somebody up in Boston, apparently. It was the same mentality, decriminalizing, various so-called minor crimes. Now, I'm okay with reduced sentences if the person warrants it, if it's their first offense, if, whatever. But just flat out saying, go ahead and steal? Like, what the heck is wrong with you, right? What the heck is wrong with you? And I would argue, what the heck is wrong with people in this country that they're not, again, you can wait until it happens and then have to sit there and figure out, well, how do I defend my property and maybe get hurt and maybe go to jail and maybe hurt somebody else? Or we could nip this in the bud and just vote against these people and, more importantly, articulate and advocate ideas that counter what they're saying. Do you want to have to win this in a fisticuffs against a criminal, or do you want to have to win this in a battle of ideas where there's a lot less immediate physical risk, right? We can either solve the problem in terms of debating the policies, debating the people, debating their positions, and doing something about it, namely voting against them and advocating against them, or we can sit back and do nothing and wait until they put us in a position where we have to stop a robber with our bare hands. Good luck with that. So this is your modern Democratic Party. And I would argue, better to try and fight against the modern Democratic Party at the polls than have to take on a robber single-handed. So there you go. Lone Rider out. Just my 2 cents.